What a crowd. Thank you. Thank you. What a great crowd we have today. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for showing your support for the Clinton School of Public Service. Doesn't Skip Rutherford do a good job? Let's give him a hand real quick. He does a great job. I want to say something about Alltel. We in Arkansas are very proud of this company. It's been a company that I grew up watching all of my life. I remember when it was Allied Telephone, and it was much smaller than it is today, and they made some very good decisions over the years, and they've been able to get out there and compete in a hyper-competitive marketplace. And I think that everyone here is very proud of what Alltel has been able to do. And we've got Scott Ford here and Jeff Fox. Why don't you guys stand? Let's give them a hand for all the great things Alltel has done. I really believe that today's attendance here shows the state pride that we have in Alltel, and it really is an organization for the 21st century. There have been thousands of people here in our state who've helped build that company and make it competitive, and to bring those services to businesses and to farmers and to schools and to families, not just all over Arkansas, but all over the country. And people here understand when I say this that it's our neighbors and it's our friends who work there and have been part of this great company. And we know what Alltel has done for telemedicine. We know how they've helped entrepreneurs and how they helped our children. And we see also for all the soccer moms out here that Alltel logo on the soccer fields in Little Rock, right? We understand that. We understand how important it is. So you can understand my concern that when I got the call that there were discussions going on between Verizon and Alltel. I'm sure a lot of people in this room had those same concerns about, is this in the end going to be good for Arkansas? Well, let me tell you this. Literally within 24 hours, the CEO of Verizon Wireless was reaching out to me and to the governor and to other members of the Arkansas congressional delegation, and he was reaching out wanting to sit down and talk with us and talk about his company. And he understands that Verizon and Verizon Wireless, they do not have a big presence in the state. So from Arkansas' standpoint, they're a little bit of an unknown, even though they're a very large, very successful, very high-caliber company. Still here in our state, we just not had a lot of hands-on experience with them. But they started reaching out, and literally it was within 24 hours. I talked to Lowell McAdam, I believe it was the very next day, once the Alltel merger was announced. He assured me that he thought this would be a win-win for his company and for the state of Arkansas and for this community in and around Little Rock. And a few days later, he came to my office, sat down with me. We talked about a lot of different issues and a lot of transition issues and a lot of things that I know he wants to talk about more today. But in that first conversation I had with him, I told him, I said, people in this community, they're going to be a little concerned about this, like I've been. They're going to want to know you. People in Arkansas, they want to know who they're dealing with. They want to know who's providing their services for them. And so I actually suggested, I didn't know if he would want to do it, but I suggested, Lowell, why don't you come to Little Rock and talk to the Clinton School and sort of introduce yourself and your company to our community and to our state. Well, it didn't take him 24 hours on that one. He jumped on it right then. He said, I'd love to do that. Lowell McAdam is a person that I've gotten to know over the last several weeks, and you can tell that he's a man of integrity. He's a man that has a long background in this industry. He's very knowledgeable, very no-nonsense. If anything, he under-promises and over-delivers. That's his reputation in the industry. And so by way of introduction, let me tell you a little bit about him. Lowell McAdam, like I said, jumped at the opportunity to work with Skip Rutherford on coming here today. He has a long and distinguished career in the telecommunications industry. He's the CEO and president of Verizon Wireless. He's been in that position since January of 2007. He served there since 2000 as the chief operating officer. Before joining Verizon Wireless, he was president and CEO of PrimeCo Personal Communications. In 1993, he joined AirTouch and served in several capacities, including Vice President International Operations. From 83 to 93, he held various positions with Pacific Bell, including Area Vice President of Bay Area Marketing and General Manager of South Bay Customer Services. In addition to serving as one of 9 members of the Verizon Wireless Board of Representatives, Lowell is chairman of the Board of Directors of CTIA, which is the Wireless Industries Association in Washington. He earned a bachelor's degree in engineering from Cornell and a master's degree in business administration from the University of San Diego. He also spent 6 years in the U.S. Navy's Engineer Corps and is a licensed professional engineer. With that, I want to introduce you to Lowell McAdam, President and CEO of Verizon Wireless. Come on up, Lowell.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Senator, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I have to echo what Skip said up front. Even though I don't have a long relationship with the senator, I would compliment you all in having the good sense to send him as your senator to Washington. Around D.C. these days, it's very difficult to find someone that you can talk to openly and honestly, share your concerns. Certainly, he is a very strong advocate. Not every one of our conversations have been pleasant for me, but someone that you can clearly do business with. So, Senator, thank you. I would also like to thank Skip Rutherford for setting this all up today. I know it's been short notice and we've had to change venues a little bit. So, Skip, thank you. I would like to change one thing that Skip said, however. Being in the wireless business, I would ask you all, if you have a cell phone, please turn it on during this discussion, okay? So what I would like to do, if it's all right, is I'd like to come down off this stage and wander around a little bit. I usually find that works better for me. I do want to also acknowledge Scott Ford. There are newspaper reports, and with all deference to those of you that are in the media, I know you always get it right, but there have been various reports about Scott and I being separated at birth and, childhood friends. I've known Scott for about 15 years. Now, you have seen Scott in the role of leading Alltel, and we'll talk more about that, a fantastic job. But when I first met Scott, he was the chairman of CTIA. He has been an active leader in the wireless industry his entire career, and he has made as big an impact on wireless in the United States as he has with Alltel here in Little Rock. And Scott, I just need to acknowledge you one more time. Thank you. Okay, so what I'd like to do today is introduce you. You guys and I are going to have a real problem here. You know that, right? I'd like to introduce you to Verizon Wireless. It's easy to view the company as this big monolith that dominates the marketplace. I wish that was true, but it's not. And I'd like to introduce you to what we have done, where we've come from, and then talk a little bit about where we're going, especially as it has to do with Alltel. And then, obviously, we'll talk about what we think some of the impacts would be on Little Rock. So when we came together in 1999, there were about 10 companies that now represent Verizon Wireless. The senator mentioned PrimeCo, the company that I was with, AirTouch on the West Coast, Bell Atlantic and NYNEX on the East Coast. But there were a lot of very small companies that were involved in the initial merger. By the way, we would have loved to have had Alltel be part of that initial merger, but we couldn't figure out how to make that happen. That's how long we've had our eye on this great company. So we had 10 different sets of processes, 10 different sets of systems, 10 different brands, and we had to work very hard to bring this company to be one face to the customer. And you can see some of the changes up there. 23 million customers to start with, up to 68 million today. We had about 21,000 employees, moved very quickly to 30, but then we've more than doubled that over time, so that shows you how dramatically the industry has grown over that period of time. We had, if you remember back in that time frame, reliable networks just didn't go together. We had certain networks that were dropping about 20% of their calls. Now, for those of you that are not in the industry, a dropped call is when the carrier decides that your call is over before you decide your call is over. So we had a lot of work to do to establish a service that customers could really rely upon. So we decided we were going to stake out a brand position early on, which some of you may remember, but it was Join In, because we were the biggest carrier and we thought everybody would want to be part of Verizon Wireless. Well, we learned very quickly that customers could care less about size. What our objective needed to be was around giving the customers the best overall experience. So when we think about that, it's easy because of our Test Man campaign. You think, well, the best overall experience is the network. Well, clearly we've made big investments in the network. Over the last 8 years, we have invested $45 billion into our network. We've added, when we first started, we had 14,000 cell sites. Today we have 31,000 cell sites. And those incremental cell sites added 335,000 square miles to coverage for customers. So we've had to make a big investment in the network. But it goes well beyond that as well. We've invested in stores. Every one of our stores costs us about $250,000, and we have 2,400 of those locations today. We had to invest in call centers, which will cost us in the neighborhood of $25 million, and we have 29 of those around the country today. Because as we thought about customer experience, it wasn't just the network. It was what went on when the customer used the phone. So we invested in creating a user interface that customers could rely on regardless of which device they were using. We had to invest in those stores so that a customer would have full service. We're one of the few carriers, by the way, along with Alltel, that does full service in the store. So if a customer needs to exchange a handset, if they have a question about billing, if they want training on the device, they can go to our stores and do that. Not a lot of customers, not a lot of carriers provide that kind of service today. And we've invested a lot in our employees and our culture as well during that period. I will say I've worked, as the Senator said, in a number of different companies. I was with Pacific Bell, I was with AirTouch, all successor companies. I was with Primeco. And we saw that if we created the right culture, if we attracted the right employees, that could be a real competitive advantage for us. The average employee in Verizon Wireless is 29 years old. You know, when I say that to employee groups, I usually get these gasps like, oh my God, I'm so old. But I think it shows you the kind of entrepreneurship and the excitement that can exist in an organization when you get the culture right, you're in a growth industry, and you're willing to make the investments that customers deserve if they're going to give you your business. So there's a lot of things I could say about culture, but what I'd like to do is just run a short video of how our employees respond when customers need us, just to give you a flavor of what Verizon Wireless is really all about.
Members in getting connected with each other and all the other departments and other agencies we needed to get in contact with.
Verizon provided us basically in a matter of hours 50 phones that we handed out to our command staff and to some of our field personnel.
When we did get here, there was phones in the watch office that were Verizon phones, and they worked great.
You get a lot of people that have slid off the road, smashed into other cars. You get accidents with injury. What's critical is knowing where on the interstate highway somebody's in trouble. That's what the cell phone can do.
We did, in fact, lose a line up to some cell towers. We were in a bit of a quandary. We really couldn't get up there either by flying or with our own equipment. Verizon Wireless contacts us and said, hey, we're going up to the site. We actually think we know where the break is. Would you like us to take some of your crews up there to get it fixed? So we really were grateful that Verizon Wireless gave us the hand there.
People needed ways to be able to share information, to access their email, to look at important websites. Verizon really stepped up. First, they increased the EVDO service. They installed that the same day we asked, which is just amazing.
We were given cell phones and air cards to keep us on the internet. I'm not only going to just tell my friends and family, but everyone I come in contact with, hey, get yourself a Verizon phone.
There was nothing above us. The house was gone, over the top of the house. We was down at 911 and all the other Verizon people that's got phones that we know, and if it wasn't for these, we couldn't got a hold of nobody.
This storm was all the way through Tennessee into Kentucky. Needless to say, we had relatives in this county. We couldn't get to their place to find out if they were okay or not. Immediately after that storm passed through, within 15 minutes, the signal from the Verizon Wireless picked back up. We were able to contact our loved ones, find out that they were all right. They could contact us.
Verizon Wireless has allowed us to cover a large geographical area. It's allowed us to keep track of close to 200 firefighters.
We're had some assignments up in the mountains at about 4,500 foot elevation, and I was pretty surprised at the service I got up there.
When we get a hold of Verizon Wireless, they show up next day with everything we need. And it seems like Verizon Wireless comes through every time.
So we have a saying in the company that our best was good enough for today, tomorrow we'll do better. And I think this clip just shows you the employees' passion for delivering a service that is so vitally important to customers. And we do our best to cultivate that passion because it is really a competitive advantage. So how do we know that this formula is the right formula? Well, here's a couple of the reasons why. When I'm asked what I'm most proud of with Verizon Wireless, it's our customer loyalty. If you spend all your time trying to make sure you've got it right for customers and you're always trying to do better, the best way to measure is do customers stay with you or not? Now, when we first formed Verizon Wireless, our churn rate or our customer disconnect rate was over 3% a month. Now, you know, in the industry, we all like to talk about monthly churn because we'd be embarrassed to talk about yearly churn, right? Over a third of your customers leave you every year. That's not too good, right? Well, we're now down on our postpay side well below 1% churn, and that obviously drives a lot of additional growth for the company, but also customers tell each other when they're satisfied like that, and it helps you grow even more. Now, you can look at some of the other, superlatives up there. Most customers of any wireless brand, there's lots of discussion about who's the biggest. We use the saying internally, bigness is not our strength, best is our strength. But I'll be honest, we do pay attention to who's growing more than anybody else. We're competitive, right? But we have more customers choosing the Verizon Wireless brand every year than anybody else. And with 68 million subs and growing, we expect to continue that. The most reliable voice and data network, like Alltel, we continue to get awards for having the best networks. Obviously, our advertisement is based upon that, and you can imagine lots of other carriers take a run at that title every once in a while, and we've been able to hold them off. We've also done extremely well in customer service, and in fact, some of you in the room who don't follow the industry closely, J.D. Power and Associates announced today the top carriers for overall customer service. And I'm happy to say that Alltel and Verizon Wireless were number 1 and number 2 in the entire nation. So congratulations to the Blue Badge folks. I won't tell you who is number 1 and who is number 2, but Scott and I had a bet, and I'm getting pretty thirsty, so I hope you're ready to pay this off, pal. Okay. All right, so Revenues have grown tremendously over the years. We could get into the whole data discussion. Data just a few years ago was 0% of our revenue. It's about 25% of our revenue today. Lots of investment to provide those kinds of applications. And we are the most profitable company. We have to pay a lot of attention to our processes, to our cost structure, but we are the most profitable at about 45% margin. Now, so what? Well, that allows us to continue to make investments in our network. And just a few months ago, the 700 megahertz auction occurred, which is the best spectrum in my entire career. And I guess I would bet Scott would say the same thing. And we were able, because of our financial performance, to purchase $9.3 billion worth of spectrum. And this spectrum penetrates buildings better than any other spectrum, and what we bought touches every square mile of the United States. So that sets us up extremely well for what we call fourth generation technology, which we will be deploying in 2009 and 2010. Now, I won't get into a lot of the ownership structure of Verizon Wireless, but 45% of us is owned by Vodafone, which is the largest wireless provider in the world. They have chosen the same technology that we have, so that we are focused now on building not only a seamless network across the U.S., but a seamless network across the globe. And if you have the largest providers of wireless service offering a global service, the applications developers and the device developers will be coming to our door first. So we think that gives us a tremendous competitive advantage as we move forward to continue the kind of role that we've been on for the last 9 years. So that sort of brings me to why Alltel. So how many of you in the room are from Alltel, work for Alltel? Okay, Scott just had a heart attack. I know he would be thinking, where are my sales going today? But I'm sure you'll make up for it. All right, the first thing I would like to say to all of you that have your hands up, congratulations. You have built, without a doubt, one of the premier companies in the United States, if not in the world. We have had our eye on Alltel forever. And luckily, Scott finally let us catch you after we'd been pursuing you for all these years. If I look at what I just described for Verizon Wireless, Scott could be up here saying exactly the same thing about you. Your focus on the customer, your focus on post-pay customers, your direct distribution, your quality of your network, all of that meshes extremely well with Verizon Wireless. And a picture is worth 1,000 words. The Alltel coverage in blue fits like a hand in a glove for Verizon Wireless. I think there's plenty of opportunity for us as we make those networks seamless, as we integrate our stores together, as we integrate our call centers together, to really take this business to the next level. You know, there's a lot of people that say to me, gosh, you're at 85, you're at 90% market penetration, and isn't that kind of the end of the run? I mean, I'm flabbergasted. I don't know how to answer that. I think in terms of 3 and 4 and 500% penetration. When you look at things like our fourth generation technology, when you look at things like our open development initiative, where we have allowed people to bring devices onto our network that we didn't sell through the stores. I mean, how many of you have 2 or 3 different devices between your laptop and your PDA and your cell phone? So I think there's tremendous opportunity. And as we can reach out and bring broadband access corner to corner in the U.S., we will have a very strong future together. So let me then come back to Little Rock for a second here, before we go to questions and answers. I know there's concern about how Verizon Wireless will interact with the community. Well, I can tell you from a company perspective, we're not the kind of company that takes our profits and goes home. We're very much involved in the local community. One of our favorite groups to be involved with is around domestic violence. That's an epidemic across the country. And I'll just give you an example of 1 month in New Jersey. We sponsor the New Jersey Battered Women's Shelter. We sponsored a 5K run. 1,000 people from Verizon Wireless showed up, all making their individual contributions. 4,000 people from the community showed up, and we had donated an additional $15,000 to that charity. That goes on in virtually every community across the country. Now, before we even started the discussions with Alltel about a merger, we have work going on through Verizon, our Verizon Foundation, in a program called Thinkfinity. And they have been working with the Department of Education here in Arkansas. And I think Dr. Kenneth James is here this morning somewhere. Dr. James, could you just acknowledge yourself to the audience, please? He is a commissioner in the Department of Education. And through our Thinkfinity portal, which is an online resource to 55,000 programs that help students, teachers, and parents learn more effectively, we're working with Dr. James, and we're modifying all of that curriculum to best fit the lesson plans within Arkansas. And we're donating that service so that we can provide a better education to the students. And that was all going on before we even started discussing the merger. Now, as a result of the merger, I know all of you are raising your hands saying, so what's going to happen to us and what's going to happen to our campus? Well, I'm not going to be able to answer every question that you have today because we're working our way through the various committees and through the Department of Justice. And until they give us a nod on what we can do, there's really not a lot that we can tell because Scott and Jeff are not able to share with us the kind of information that we would need to make some of those decisions. But I can tell you that we are going to create a region headquarters here in Little Rock in that building. We have 20 regions across the country. Little Rock will be the 21st. Everywhere we can, we locate a call center right with the region because we want the end-to-end life cycle of the customer to be known and to be managed at one point in the business. So we are going to not only preserve the call center that we have at the campus there, I hope to be able to grow that to well over 1,000 employees over the next year or so after we bring the companies together. Will everyone have a job that's there in that campus today? No. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that. These mergers are built on synergies, and synergies involve eliminating redundancies across a couple of organizations. So I'm not here to tell you that. But what I will tell you, just like when you look at those 10 companies with 30,000 employees, if we continue to grow, we'll stay on that same kind of trajectory. So there will be a lot of opportunity. May not be right here in Little Rock. But I can tell you, we have gotten the message loud and clear from the senator and from the mayor and everyone we meet that preserving jobs here is important. And I'll go back to the quality of the company that you have all built, the Alltel employees. The talent that you have in the organization is the talent that we want to keep within Verizon Wireless, and we're going to do our best to do that. Okay, so I think that's about a place for me to stop, and I know Skip is going to come up and moderate some Q&A, so why don't we move to that? Thank you.
Thanks, Lowell. Okay, we've got microphones in the aisles, so would you please raise your hands and we'll try to call on you. Got a question right here. We'll get a microphone coming at you. Is it on? Talk. See, man a bit.
He'll bring it up.
Hello.
Hi.
In reference to your community involvement, you touched on this briefly, and Senator Pryor touched on it as well. Where do you stand with continuing support of organizations that Alltel is already supporting? Mm-hmm. Good example being Little Rock Football Club, kids wearing Alltel across their jerseys, Little Rock Marathon, Arkansas River Fest. Those are just some examples.
Yeah, the things that you outline are very similar across the country. What I look for is the region president that will sit here in Little Rock will make that decision. We are sponsoring rodeos in Mesquite, Texas. We sponsor marathons around the country. So whatever makes sense to the local community is what we try to do. The thing that I guard against as a company is having too many policies out of New Jersey. We try to give as much decision-making as we can in the local community. And so I would suspect that those kinds of things that we have a good relationship built up on, we're going to want to maintain that. And I think that's a philosophy you need to hear from me. We don't want a merger like this to create a problem for customers or for the community. We want to be viewed as somebody that came in and made things even better, not took a lot of things away. So that'll be our philosophy going forward. And when we can, we'll make sure that the region president for the area gets down here, gets to know everybody. We have no idea who it's going to be at this point, let me just say that. And then we'll get them ingrained in the community, and they'll make that decision.
Questions? With all these Alltel employees, we don't have any hands up right now? Scott, you've done a good job, pal. Can
you answer how many employees will be in a regional office?
Besides
the call center?
Besides the regional office?
Yeah, the regional offices vary quite a bit across the country. Obviously, the one that's in charge of New York City is very different than the one that's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But typically, there are about 100 people that are involved in the marketing and sales and finance functions. So that's a ballpark.
Any other questions?
I think there's one over here.
There's one right over here. Yes, sir. There are microphones coming at you.
Yes, I'm not an Alltel employee, but I am a customer, and I really want an iPhone, but I don't want to switch to AT&T. So what can you do for me?
I can't wait to hear how Scott is going to answer that question. So I think I'll use this as a point to say we have to make sure that our operations stay completely separate. We are very fierce competitors in the marketplace until the day we close, and then we're going to be one big happy family. But were you a Verizon Wireless customer, this is how I would answer that question. If you look at the flow of devices and the competitiveness of devices, you'll see one come out that's really strong on the GSM side, and customers will really want that. And then you'll see one that comes out very strong on the CDMA side, and customers will want that. And we're just in kind of the normal swinging back and forth of that pendulum for right now. I feel very, very good about the Verizon Wireless lineup. And I know Scott's is very similar, and we see some other devices that we plan on bringing out in time for the fourth quarter that will be very strong. So we aren't going to have the iPhone. I don't want to sugarcoat that, but we feel very good about what we have being extremely competitive. And if you check your blogs, you'll see that it's not all roses with the iPhone, but I'm not here to bash that. Okay.
All right. Any other questions?
We have one.
Got one right here at the back.
You're just getting warmed up, right?
All right, hold on. Let's do this one first, and then we'll come over there. Yes, go ahead.
Jeff has asked that you say whether you're a store employee or not before you speak.
I'm not an employee of Alltel or Verizon. The phrase going green is pretty important for here in Arkansas, referencing example, the Clinton Library, Heifer International, Windrock International. How green is Verizon Wireless, and what are your plans for going green here in Arkansas? Thank you.
Okay. That is a very hot topic, and one, the senator mentioned that I'm an engineer by training, and that is one of the areas that I spent, it was a while ago now, I'll admit, but a lot of time in. How green is Verizon Wireless? Not as green as we need to be, not as green as we're going to be. But I will tell you that we are investing in all of the different technologies now. We have cell sites that run on solar power. We're working with some companies in California on wind power. We have hydrogen fuel cells in our central offices. We have hybrid vehicles. We are pushing very hard to do more by self-service, and we're incenting customers to not take a paper bill because it's bad for the environment. So we are working on all of those. I would say we're probably above average with any company out there. I wouldn't shirk from that. But I know what's possible, and I'm hopeful that we can really improve our game quite a bit.
Okay. Question right back here.
Well, I'm not a Alltel employee. I am an employee of a small local company that does a lot of business with Alltel. Will the attitude of the new region be similar to that of the organizations that are sponsored, similar to the previous question, or will it be overhauled, or kind of understand what I'm getting at? There are lots of companies locally that do a lot of business with Alltel, and the jobs within the company are not the only ones in jeopardy.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and that's not an easy question for me since I don't know what exactly you're offering. What I will tell you, though, I'm not going to sugarcoat that either. We, as part of the $9 billion of synergies that we've said the merger is going to produce, we are going to have to look at every process, every supplier, and every distribution outlet that we have in the company to make sure that it makes sense for serving customers. So what I'm really hopeful of is a lot of the things that Alltel does, and I know Jeff in particular has put a lot of time into supply chain management and vendor management, and Scott has told me a number of times we really need to take a look at some of these as we go forward. What I can commit to you today is we will take a very hard look at all of those, and everybody will be given an opportunity. I can't commit to you that every individual supplier is going to stay in place. That's just not the reality of a merger.
Good question right back here.
Well, I am not an employee of Alltel, but I cannot begin to tell you what this company has meant to the community. One of the many, many things they've brought to us is Alltel Arena. Mm-hmm. So my question, will Alltel Arena become Verizon Wireless Arena?
Well, we'd have to take a look at the contract, to be honest. Sometimes, for example, the NASCAR contract, I would love to continue that relationship. Sprint has a deal with NASCAR that prohibits that. But absent a prohibition like that, it would be our expectation to change anything that's Alltel over to Verizon Wireless. We just have to see the details. You don't work in that stadium or anything, do you? Okay.
She spends a lot of time there, I can tell you.
All right. That's our game plan. Again, we want to be very visible in the community in a positive way, and I know the team here has worked to get that affection that you have for them, and there's nothing that I want to do that would destroy that kind of relationship.
Got time for one more question, right here.
Now the hard ones come, Scott.
No, now we got one. Wait a second. Let's wait for the. Wait.
I used to teach school. I have a big mouth.
We can hear you.
What is the approximate time frame for all these justice issues and legal things to be handled? In other words, when will you open your doors here as Verizon?
Well, you know, I ask the senator that question almost every time I talk to him. So here's what we're trying to shoot for. Early in November, the FCC has probably their last meeting of the year, and it may be their last meeting for quite a while. And so we're trying to get everything done that we can get done so that they can give us a thumbs up at that meeting. There's a lot of hurdles between now and then, and you know, we're doing our best. Scott and I are working very hard on getting those approved. So that's our hope. And then our general philosophy is don't change the name until the customer has the same experience. So that would mean we need to get some of the billing systems changed. We'll need to get the stores converted and signage done and that sort of thing. So typically that takes in the neighborhood of 9 to 12 months. It depends a little bit on the network technology, whether we have to convert things over or not. So we want a customer to have a seamless experience across the country. And so it won't be close one day and change the name the next. It'll be closed one day and then hopefully within 12 months change the name.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for Lowell McAdam.
Thank you very much.